is Gilgeous-Alexander. McCollum staying with him. Spins, gets inside. Left-handed off the glass. Oh, what a sweet move.
Giddy, tough spot. Backdoor. What a pass. What a play. And J-Dub picks the pocket of Trae Young. He'll take it himself.
This is Udart. You're listening to the Uncontested.
What is up, and welcome to the Uncontested podcast, coming to you live Sunday, June 2nd. I'm your host for the evening, Jacob Niffen. Got a bunch of fellows with me tonight. We got JD Silva.
Fellows.
We got Justin Peabody.
Hello, everybody.
Fresh from California, Justin Peabody. Is that correct?
Indeed. Feels good to be back.
Nice. We got Taylor Peterson.
Got Silva, myself, Kamiar, the Chelsea boys on the podcast, and everyone minus Nick.
We've
Sooner
got
boys as well.
We've got JD's doppelganger, friend of the podcast,
Special
and
guest.
OU podcaster Kamiar Marabian on the show tonight.
The trash man, you garbage your last goal, Mr. Cuomo. It's good to be back to see y'all's beautiful faces.
Good to have you back.
Nick Crane is not in the house tonight because he is in a little place I like to call Italy, watching some basketball.
Only you, that name. Very
Italia.
specific nickname.
JD,
Yeah.
can you give us... So Nick is at Adidas Eurocamp right now, watching high school age kids play basketball, I believe. Not current draft age folks, but like...
All the above.
Okay.
High schools currently, and then they also, like some of the international prospects who weren't able to make the combine, will do their measurements and testing, I
Gotcha.
believe either Monday or Tuesday.
He did
And a
meet up.
James Harden sighting.
Yeah, and a Vasilije Micic
Indeed.
sighting. So, JD, to kick off the show tonight, before I tell people about the sponsors and everything else, to lead off the show 3 minutes in, Nick is in Italy watching people play basketball.
Yeah.
I need you to give us a line of what Nick would say while he's watching these people play basketball, but you have to do it with an Italian accent.
Okay. Let's see. I had
Get-
no
get-
idea where that setup was going.
Get in the mindset. Get in the mindset. Give me just a second. We are brought to you tonight by the Blue Wire Podcast Network and the best fast casual dining in OKC, Dave's Hot Chicken and Spark OKC. I saw the Spark in Nichols Hills is now hiring. So if you are an OKC resident and looking for a job, you can go make some burgers. I will come buy them from you because Spark is delicious. All right, JD, you ready? You had enough time to cook it up?
So I'm Nick,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm also
But
having an
Italian
accent.
Nick.
Yeah,
You're
does he
Nick
have to
with
have
an
like
Italian
a Luigi
accent.
accent? Does he have to have like a
Nicola.
Luigi accent? Like
Okay,
really,
yeah.
really
it's
like
like
seriously?
Nick-
Nicola Crane. Nicola Crane watching the basketball. At the Adidas camp.
All right, so I'm Nick. I'm walking back to my seat in the bleachers to watch all these Italians play basketball or watch people in Italy play basketball. I'm carrying my popcorn back to my seat. A ball flies out of bounds, almost hits me, and Nick just says, "Hey, I'm walking here." That's all I got for an Italian.
Sound like somebody from Boston.
That's the closest thing I got.
He was going for Italian New York.
Yeah, that's what that was.
Mamma mia.
We might have offended.
Yeah.
To our Italian listeners, we love you all. We are not trying. You have much more culture than we do. And I'm sure Nick is enjoying your country immensely. He also texted me at like 4 a.m. And I was like, brother, it's 4 a.m. here. I'm trying to sleep. All right, let's talk some basketball. Lots of stuff going on. Before we do, though, we got to start off. We got to. Not we have to. We got to. Past couple of shows, we've talked about how we were raising money for Safe Haven Animal Shelter in Oklahoma City based off of each of us had to pitch in based off how many predictive losses we had over the season. That was $156. We wanted to crowdsource 156 from the fans. Nick said he was going to donate 156 of his own money. I am proud to announce that we have raised from the fans $460.
Yowza.
Plus our 156, plus Nick's 156. That's another 300. So we're looking at $760. And
Plus
then
my
Taylor's
bosses.
boss, how much
Yeah.
did he give?
156. He matched it.
That cheap bastard. I'm kidding. We love you, man.
I just got fired. Thanks, Jacob.
We're way past the math that I can do. What was that? 760 plus another 156 is
It's around about 900, bro.
$900.
It's above, but
That's awesome.
Thank you, math teacher Kamiyar Marabian.
Yep.
Teaching that AP statistics class. Quick shout out to Nicholas, Smoot, Cooper, Craig, Luke, Jeff, LaRonda, Andrew, Michelle. Let me get over to the PayPal. Hold on. Art and Alexander for all pitching in.
It's awesome.
We greatly, greatly, greatly appreciate all of you. We will be donating that money this week. I don't think they listened to the pod, but I know Thunder Chick did give them a heads up that some money was coming their way. But thank you all for donating. That's really, really awesome. We are all pet owners on this podcast. The Thunder were the dogs this season, so we're excited to donate money to an animal shelter that's taking care of some strays. So thank you guys so much. Now it's time to talk basketball. 7 minutes in. Basketball time. Gentlemen, I thought tonight we're not in the dog days, but we're in like the pre-dog days.
theme going.
Yeah, we're in
No
the
pun
pre-dog days.
intended.
What the dog doing?
We got a couple of weeks until the NBA draft. We got another week after that until free agency. All these trades start firing up, and the talk of the town for the Oklahoma City Thunder is, what are they going to do? Who are they going to go get? To drive that point home, I was at the gym tonight. My physical therapist was at the gym and came up to me and said, what are the Thunder going to do? They going to trade for somebody?
I thought you were going to say, what the dog doing?
He came up to me and said, what the dog doing?
Then he tried to
Everyone
correct you on your lifting techniques, and
Probably.
Just
Said,
ruin
bump
your
that-
body.
Bump
This
that
is
weight up,
why.
boy. Everyone wants to know what the Thunder's going to do. We've talked our thoughts extensively, but I thought it might be nice to get a little more specific with some of the options that they can do. Also, shout out to Thunder Chick in the chat doing the math for me. $916. Thank you, Thunder Chick.
that's awesome.
So tonight we're going to talk about the Thunder going out to acquire a big man. If you talk to some Thunder fans, all in on the Thunder going and getting a more traditional five to play next to Chet or play off the bench. Some are completely anti getting a big man, want to keep Chet at the five, want to play small ball. Small ball did win you 57 games and get you 6 games into the second round as the youngest team in the NBA this year. I think that argument's also kind of valid. I thought we would start off tonight talking about the pros and the cons of the Thunder pursuing a big man before we get into some specific names. If you guys have names of big men that you're interested in, drop them in the chat. We can kind of speed run through them towards the end of the show, but we'd love to see what you guys have to think as well. Gentlemen, I'm going to open up the floor, though. Let's start with the pros of adding a big man. Let's do pros, cons, and then kind of where we think the Thunder are at with all of this. But let's start with pros. What are the pros of the Thunder adding a more quote-unquote traditional big to this team going into next season?
I mean, I feel like it's pretty obvious. The pros are you get more meat up front. Chet is very, very, very flimsy, if you will. I mean, with the old shirts, the Poku and Chet shirts with the inflatable tube men, they're tiny. Yeah, really, really flimsy, just a bag of bones. And so you want to kind of add that enforcer up top, maybe somebody more worthwhile on defense, but also maybe somebody that can shoot the ball from 3. Who knows? But of course, you could see games where Chet was very exhausted. That's why I didn't want the Mavs series to go long. So I didn't want the on the Pell series to go long, is because, well, he was gassed, and you're going to need some more guys up front. I mean, Jalen Williams can't hold down the fort for you the entire time.
I think that you look at the success they had with the small sample size of Chet and J. Will together, and you could see how that lineup could flourish even more so with a big that's not J. Will. And that's not necessarily a knock on J. Will, but just thinking about like getting an NBA starting center caliber big next to Chet, like it's intriguing. And coming off that Mavs series where you got to watch Derek Lively yam on you for 48 minutes a night, it feels like the easy, and I don't say that in a bad way, like the easy knee-jerk reaction, right? You saw it. We talked about a lot. This postseason was going to be the opportunity to see what the Thunder have. The easy conclusion is to see that they don't have that big center presence. The girthy boy down low, as Kamiar alluded to.
The girthy boy down low at 11:30, JD, if you want to tag that.
They're necessary. Their girthy boys are necessary, man.
And we also need more meat up front.
More
You're
meat
on
up
a
front.
roll
The
tonight.
girthy boys. We also mentioned Bag of Bones
Lord have
earlier.
mercy, I'm about to bust.
Anyway, it's obvious, right? Like it fills a void. I'm not going to go into cons yet because we're getting to that, but I think the obvious pro is you're filling a need that was exposed in the playoffs that could come up again. You know, looking at matchups, even looking at the series that they swept, which is hard to find negatives in a series that you sweep. But like there were times where you can still play the strategy the Thunder played, where you just let them feed the post and waste time and take that all night. You could do that with a bigger post presence out there. Like it doesn't negate what the Thunder did in the Pelican series. It's an easy fix.
I agree with that. Also, quick aside, there's some comments in the chat. We have some people talking about like a Cameron Johnson. Our guy Smoot said at a beefy 4. Those are all things we will be getting into in future episodes. We kind of consider those players more of wings. And so we'll touch on that in subsequent episodes. Today's and tonight specifically about bigs, like you all have touched on. One pro, I think, that neither of you touched on specifically, but kind of alluded to. I mean, the big pro of being a true big next to Chet is the rebounding woes. Being able to fix those, grab offensive and defensive rebounding woes, or rebounds. Some of that, the offensive rebound woes, are due to the Thunder being a really good offensive team. There's not a lot of offensive rebounds to be had, but on the defensive side specifically, we saw that be an issue, and we saw on the offensive side as well against the Dallas Mavericks in the second round as well. So that's a big pro there, is adding someone alongside Chet who can grab those rebounds and help in that regard, as well as having a defensive presence and a true big next to Chet. It allows Chet to be kind of roam a little more, be more of a free safety around the rim, which I think could allow him, kind of free him up to get more blocks, which is something he's obviously fantastic at. But when he's trying to hold down the fort, for lack of a better term, around the rim and be that like second line defense after his point of attack defenders, I think that frees up Chet a little bit as well. So I love that you mentioned the J. Will Chet lineups, Justin, that we didn't see a lot of, but we did see the Thunder close with to end the series against the Mavs. Something I'm keeping an eye on. Again, a lot of cons we'll get into. I'm not sure that's necessarily the answer long-term for like the quote-unquote fourth starter. But that J. Will Chet lineup is something that's certainly stuck with me. And I'm curious to see if they can kind of improve that with a new player.
Yeah, I think you've touched on, all three of you have touched on like the main benefits of getting another big, obviously. And I think the player the Thunder are searching for that we're all kind of alluding to is a rare player that adds all these things where they're mobile, they're big, they can shoot, they can play defense, all these things. But another big advantage, I think, is just being able to play, no matter how many minutes this theoretical player would add to the team, just being able to play a different style if you need to in situational matchups like what we saw in the playoffs, obviously, some parts of the regular season, obviously, just being able to throw something else, a curveball out there in a way, because Thunder didn't have that option at all in the playoffs. And yes, the Thunder like to do things in non-traditional ways. They like to win in their own way. But ultimately, the drawback of not having this extra big is pretty obvious. And I think we all think that it's necessary in to address it in some way, not just a Bismack on the bench who didn't do anything this season at all. Someone
That's
else.
rude.
Hey, he filmed a great documentary. I can't
He's
wait to
got a
watch.
documentary. He fasted. He blacked out. He did a lot of stuff.
I was gonna say he fainted.
Yeah, it's a rare player but the Thunder have the assets to acquire rare players. I think that's why this conversation is worth having.
I think that's a key point that often gets lost on NBA Twitter and these hypothetical discussions. It's a rare player, and I think Sam Presti addressed it pretty well in his comments that the player that you're after isn't necessarily one that teams are just willing to give up. Like, you can find the name, you can find the perfect fit, but unless the deal is there to be had, that doesn't mean you can get him. And I think that's the hardest part when talking specifically centers, is not only who fits and who complements the team, but who's available. And yes, like you said, Silva, you can probably go sway some minds if there's somebody you really like, given the assets the Thunder have at their disposal, but the other team's got to be willing to sell.
Yeah.
I think another pro.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry. Good.
I was going to say the last pro I can think of that you guys hadn't mentioned yet. We've talked about adding the physicality up front, a guy that can't be bullied, hitting the glass. Ideally, you want somebody that can space the floor, offering you new looks in the front court, not playing the same way for 48 minutes, which I'm not convinced they don't want to do. But I think another thing that we kind of haven't hit on that's a pro of bringing in a more traditional big is something that we haven't really seen from this team in the past 3 or 4 years. I feel like, and kind of until the last half of that Mavs series, is the vertical spacing, the lob passes. I think we saw more Chet alley-oops in games 4, 5, and 6 in the Mavs series than we maybe did in like the past 3 months. I think Chet is a good lob threat that they just never really that wasn't the style they were playing. It was more pick and pop. Adding a lob threat and a roll man that can just go up and get it when you've got guys like Shea and J-Dub who put so much pressure on the rim and draw so much attention to them when the ball is in their hand, I think that could open up a lot of vertical threats where if you had a big guy who you come off the screen, the double comes and you just float it, kind of like what we saw Derek Lively do over and over and over.
Yep.
Really in this entire Mavs run, that becomes a weapon that they don't have currently, or they do have, but they don't utilize currently. So I think that could be another pro.
That was going to be my only counterpoint to what you mentioned, Jacob, and you alluded to it there at the end, is that Chet's a great vertical spacer lob threat. I'm not sure that the Thunder guards, if you want to call them guards, or just the playmakers, maybe is a better term, they utilize that. I don't
think he's been in the position to be a lob threat as frequently, though. We saw it a lot late in the Mavs series where Chet was kind of in the dunker spot. I mean, hell, they should have forced a game 7 on an alley-oop.
Yeah.
An incredible play by Shea to Chet. And then we got the foul in the corner, right? But that should have gone to game 7 off that wonderful lob play. I feel like Chet's more of a pick and pop big, and maybe he develops that lob threat and rolls more over time. But if you got a big who is large enough to just bump dudes out of the way, roll to the basket, rise up and throw it down, that just adds a whole nother dynamic that this team just hasn't played with since pre-COVID.
Steven Adams.
Since Steven Adams.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of enforcer role. That's something that OKC lacks. They have leadership roles. They need that enforcer kind of perk role. And I think that would be really, really big for guys like Chet going down the stretch.
You want someone who will fight?
Series. I want a guy that wants to scrap. Playoff series are tough. And
is that Bobby Portis's music?
Maybe Shea can flex only so hard after something happens. J-Dub can only scream so loud, but when you have an enforcer out there like Perk that's willing to go to a ref with Zach Randolph and say, hey, don't call fouls because we're about to beat the hell out of each other for the next, however many minutes. That's the kind of guy I want on my team. And the guy that sits on Mike Miller in a playoff series as well. I want that. I want that a lot.
You guys ready to move over to cons?
Yeah.
Sounds like we're about to talk about a list of convicts.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what I thought of.
Specifically, which Thunder big men targets that are also convicts should we?
I mean, they already had Robert Swift, right? Didn't he literally get drug and gun
yes, he did.
possession stuff?
I'll be a convict if they draft Zach Edey.
That's a fair take. That's a fair take.
So what are the cons of bringing in a big man?
Well, the team that drives the most in the NBA, whose offense is totally based on driving all the time, the lane gets clogged. This is like the most basic view. The lane is clogged if there's a big that can't shoot, just hanging around there, lumbering around. Like his defender can just turn and defend Shea in addition to Shea's defender or whoever else. And that's kind of like the base level low hanging fruit.
Can you imagine Shea trying to drive the lane and then like butt fumbling into Zach Edey?
See, that's how I become a convict.
And I think part of the way they play, because they are attacking the rim constantly and having, essentially like Shea's a guard, but I mean, he's huge. He's 6'6". So having really one guy that's below, 6'5", you're constantly driving at the rim. And I think that gives you a really, really, really kind of elite kind of offense where you're drawing fouls or getting to the rim. Putting another big guy out there, I mean, you guys alluded to earlier, what kind of big guy are you getting? Somebody that shoots and can close out like a Nic Claxton? Or are you looking at some slow, like you guys mentioned, guy that's going to be in the paint for you? And it just really depends on the kind of big that's out there for OKC to get.
Hey, a quick shout out to our friends in the chat at Just OK Sports. It's been a long time, friends. It's been a long time, but we get Kamiar back on the podcast and they're back in the chat. So happy to see their names back. Come back up. I think kind of comes down to something that Presti mentioned in his media availability. When we're talking about cons of adding a true big to this team, he mentioned something along the lines of, it's obviously not exact, but he'd rather be an elite defensive team who gives up rebounds than address the rebounding issue, but sacrifice in other areas elsewhere. Basically, you don't want to try and address one hole. And I think he said like create 5 other holes elsewhere. And I think that's kind of the issue with adding a true big. Justin, I hate you.
What? I didn't say anything.
I'm just looking at your face. I think the key.
Your face.
I get it. I get that a lot.
Yes. The key is finding a big who not only addresses the rebounding issue, but can also defend in space, protect the paint, and play make. And like we already have alluded to, everybody wants that player, just like everybody wants a versatile wing. And so I think that's the biggest con is finding someone who fits the style of play the Thunder are currently playing without sacrificing too much elsewhere.
I think the con is that J. Will's role gets diminished on this team. Because what I see, exactly what you just said, Taylor, like when I try to think about this team with a center, I think it likely happens in limited minutes with Chet. Like there's a world in which you start this person at 5 alongside Chet and they play a little bit, and then maybe they're the first one that gets subbed out, and then they run a lot with the second unit as that backup 5 behind Chet. And then in limited situational opportunities and minutes, playoff series where you need that, you bring him in and you play him together, just like they did with J. Will, but thinking like an upgrade over J. Will. I just can't wrap my head around, for the reasons that you guys have discussed, a world in where all of a sudden Chet's just always at the 4, or even like primarily at the 4. I think if this person gets added, I think you see a lot of staggering.
I agree
completely. It's going to be somebody who's
speechless.
Justin, just to kind of add on to that, and I'm trying to find the stat here. I'm not quite sure how to do it, so let me keep searching. But do you know the percentage of possessions this past season that Chet and J. Will played together?
It's like 2.6. Something
it was
like that.
2.5% of all the possessions from game 1 and of the regular season until game 6 of the second round. They played 2%, 2.5% of their possessions for the Thunder in totality were played with Chet and J. Will on the floor, who were your 2 bigs for predominantly most of the season, right?
Yep.
So I'm kind of with you in the sense, I don't see Chet playing primarily for. I'm trying to find the stat that says the percentage of minutes at each position, like the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't know where that's at though. I thought it was on Basketball Reference, but I'm not finding it.
I think ultimately it's like
anyway. Chet had to play 99% of his minutes at the 5 this year, right?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Taylor. I'm sorry.
No, which I don't think will change. Yeah. I was just going to say, I think what we all kind of agree on is we don't expect the Thunder to address like a change to the starters by bringing in a true big. It's most likely going to be somebody who comes off the bench if they do so. But for the sake of this segment and this podcast, we're getting into some potential bigs that they could potentially acquire. But I don't see it being a starter.
Look at Derek Lively as a great example of how impactful that can be. Very different situation, very different team dynamic, but you can have a guy like that's the thing that I think is intriguing about this Mavericks team is how they swap out Gafford for Lively, and there's just always some giant monster in the lane. Yeah, and you can debate the plus minuses of Gafford's impact. He does have some really fun blocks while getting scored on more than Lively, but they constantly have that inside presence, which the Thunder did not have. You swap out Chet for Jay Will, and it's a very different experience for teams attacking the lane.
And I was texting Jake about this earlier today. Like, it also depends on the player's role. I mean, like Taylor mentioned, a lot of these guys we're probably going to talk about are going to be coming off the bench, and depending upon how many bench minutes they have, and Justin, you tabbed on Jay Will's diminished role because of that, possibly. And so, what role are they also handing out? Because, like you guys mentioned, I mean, you're not really tossing out the starting five just yet. I mean, I know a lot of people see a lot of writing on the wall with Josh and Vegas odds, but that's not for this podcast. But I think there's a point to be said about that. But also, like you guys said, Chet and Jay Will, they're the only two bigs. You kind of want a third legitimate big you could plug and play if one of the guys is having a really bad night. And so, like, yeah.
For sure. And I think the last thing for cons, unless you guys have anything else to add, JD kind of touched on it offensively. You don't want to clog the lane. I mean, Josh Giddey and Lou Dort got ignored in that second round series. What happens if you have a Jonas Valanciunas out there? You want to talk about just another guy sitting in the lane?
Yep.
But the flip side, JD, I think, is on the other side of the court. We can talk about the big offensively, but the big defensively. The Thunder had a top 5 defense this year. Chet was an elite rim protector and rim deterrent. If you bring in somebody who can't switch out like Chet can, who can't fit in the defensive philosophy and has to be an exclusive, like, drop big and is giving up threes, that changes the defensive philosophy of this team, like, completely. And so the con is that it can drastically change the way you play when that guy is on the court. Sometimes that's a good thing. Sometimes it can be a bad thing. And I think it continues to lead to what you guys were saying, that it's all about fit. You got to find the right player, and that player is just so hard to find.
I have to ask. I have to do the patent Nick maneuver in asking a difficult question to you all
in an Italian accent, please.
I can't do that. I can't do it.
Every time I'm about to talk, I want to do it in an Italian accent tonight, based off how we started.
Would you all, just yes or no, go back and draft Derek Lively if you could, instead of Cason?
No. That's a fun one.
That's a great Nick question.
It is a great Nick question. I say yes because that's what I wanted to happen, and I think I stand by that.
Is that what you want to happen now, or was that what you?
That's what I wanted to happen, and I think I still would.
You still stay on business, yeah? I don't. I still take Cason long term. With what's about to happen,
I think Cason's potential is still untapped, and the fact that he came in as a rookie and contributed like he did, really on both ends of the floor. I still don't think he was in a very specific role, kind of like Lively is, and he thrived. But I think there's a lot more to Cason's game that we haven't seen yet.
I think Cason can be more versatile. I think there's a wider range of positive outcomes for Cason and spots that he can fill versus I don't want to put a limit on Lively. Lively is awesome.
Yep.
But I don't think Lively is ever going to shoot it. I think Lively is going to be a rim protecting, drop big, who can catch lobs and who can pass out of the short roll. And then he's going to be like an exclusive pick and roll big man and a bit of a release valve. I don't see him ever being a guy that is like a lead at creating his own shot, a guy that can space the floor to three for you. There's nothing wrong with that. That fits perfectly with what Dallas needs.
Yep.
I just feel like Lively is a little bit more on a set track, where Cason can be a little bit of everything, right? He could be your defender. He's got a little bit of off the bounce game. He can definitely shoot it. Like, he's got more in his bag. And so I think that versatility makes Cason like the right fit for Oklahoma City.
I would have enjoyed seeing them try and incorporate a guy like Lively into the team. Like, it would have been fun to see Mark try and figure out.
I think this, like, seeing how that would have played out over the last season would have been fascinating, because obviously, like, everything we just spent this last segment talking about, the way the team plays looks very different with Derek Lively instead of Cason Wallace. I think for me, it's opportunity. Cason, very versatile. Cason has a lot of great, like, abilities, and like you said, Jacob has a very deep bag that I think we're gonna get to see, but how much? Oklahoma City has a lot of talented guards, a lot of talented wing players that are gonna take a lot of minutes, and I think he's gonna always have a role. But I think that Lively's role, while more defined, I think would be a kind of like faster day one plug and play, and probably wouldn't change. Versus, like you said, Cason, who knows?
And I think it's super early to be talking about this, right? I mean, and like you've all mentioned, this is all about fit. And Cason fits OKC right now. Lively definitely fits what Dallas is doing and has done down the stretch. 5 years down the road, we'll see how that actually plays out.
Yep.
It'll be fun to do a redraft at some point.
All right. You guys want to take a break? And on the other side, we'll talk some specific players.
Let's do it.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. We will be right back. And we are back. So we've talked pros and cons about the Thunder adding a big, kind of how they want to play, et cetera, et cetera. So let's put some names on it. We have curated a list of 4 bigs, and then we each get a wild card. We'll toss a name out. We'll debate how the fit would look, how the Thunder would go about acquiring that player, how we feel about the fit, what it would cost as far as like the trade or the free agent or whatever. And then we'll make a determination on the player. Then we'll move on to the next guy. And then at the end, we'll see if we can come to a consensus on like, all right, who is the guy out of all of them we talked about, if they had to go get one. Does that sound good?
So good.
First name on the list, Nicholas Claxton. Claxton will be a restricted free agent with the Brooklyn Nets this season. I will read you guys some statistics real quick. Claxton this season played 71 games, 30 minutes per game. He took 8 shots, shot 63%. He took a total of 0.1 3-point attempts per game. He just does not shoot really outside the restricted area at all. Average almost 3 free throw attempts a game, shot 55%. He is a 54% free throw shooter for his career. 10 rebounds, 7.2 defensive rebounds, which is pretty nice. 2 assists, 2 blocks, and 12 points. Last year, he finished 9th in, last year being 2022-2023, finished 9th in Defensive Player of the Year. When you look at his advanced stats, his defensive rebounding percentage this year, 27%. His total rebounding percentage, 18%. He would be a very good rebounder on this team. Let's talk Nic Claxton. Pros, cons, and how we're feeling.
He's probably expensive.
That was my first thought. How much money is he getting?
I think that's the biggest, probably the biggest con, because we just talked about what we think his role is. If the Thunder goes and gets this other guy, he's not playing starters minutes, maybe. He's maybe not even starting. He's probably playing more that backup 5 big with like limited selections next to Chet. Does the price tag he's going to command align with that? Or are you comfortable paying that, I should say? You are going to have a cap bump. You can factor that in. But what does that look like, and how much are the Thunder willing to pay out? I don't know if he's worth it.
And see, that's the thing, because I really like his offensive versatility, with the exception of 3-point shots, which he just doesn't do. Transition, he's great. In defense, on defense, he's great. I think he averaged 12, 10, and 2. So he's a kind of double guy. He had like a 2.5 blocks a game a couple of seasons ago. That's kind of out there. But again, this is something I text Jake about. Is like, how is a player gonna feel about their role? Because Nic Claxton is not a guy I want on the starting lineup, and not a guy I believe would ever be in the starting lineup. And I feel like him being younger, 25, about to enter his prime in the NBA, I don't know if he would want that kind of role coming off the bench. And so I think that's the only problem here, is the idea with Chet, unless you're just trying to team up this backcourt or this front court, excuse me, with a guy that doesn't shoot. And like you guys mentioned, guys that can double shea easily, because
Spacing
this guy's
itself.
not a shooter. Yeah.
He can go catch a lob, and call me to your pro earlier, you wanted someone who will scrap.
And that's the thing. Like, I really like what he does, and I think he's a guy like you could stagger, but I don't know if he personally would want a role like that. I mean, other guys on the list that we're going to talk about later, I think would accept that role, but he's not a guy at that age that I think would accept that. I think he knows that he has better basketball ahead of him.
I will tell you this: as much as I am out on the Nic Claxton fit, I'm just going to be very straight up with that. Mike is going to get in the chat here and yell at me in just a second. As much as I'm out on the Nic Claxton fit, defensively, that's a goddamn nightmare for other teams.
Yeah.
Agree.
Taylor, you're muted and you keep talking.
Yeah.
I was just agreeing with you.
Yeah, I figured. That's what most people on this podcast do.
Unbelievable. Defensively, agreed. It would be great, but Silva, you brought it up in like the potential cons earlier of like somebody that's going to space the floor. That's not Nic Claxton. Unless he can touch the rim, he's probably not putting the ball in it. And I think that would be a tough adjustment for this team. I think even staggering him, like the way that changes things, I think that would be pretty stark.
To use a Jacobism, I think you guys hit the nail on the head there in regards to Claxton's fit. I keep coming back to something. Kamar, you spent a lot of time talking about Claxton being willing to take on that role with the Thunder, which I think is really important. But at the same time, if he is willing to take on a second unit type of role, maybe you stagger him and Chet some, what happens to J. Will? And J. Will is much more of a floor spacer. And like a lot of the people are bringing up in the chat, he presents a lot more offensive versatility. And so you could play them together, but then who are you benching in that second unit?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with variability on the team as well, though. You guys mentioned throwing out the random whatever lineups, right? And so he could be a guy that sparks transition. That's kind of what he does with blocks and then the dunks in transition. So I think that's important to reference too. So there's nothing wrong with having that kind of like oddball out there.
I think last thing on Claxton, Jake Fisher of Yahoo Sports has reported that he is expecting a 4-year, $80 to $100 million contract, which would put annually 20 to 25 mil, which we're talking about a bench player. That'd be a lot. Okay, before we move on to the next one, quick pulse on Claxton, where I'm just going across the board. JD?
I have no pulse.
Taylor?
I'm kind of out.
Justin?
I'm definitely out.
Kamiar?
A no-go for me.
It's a no for me, dog. Next name on the list is a little guy, not very little, that I like to call Wendell Carter Jr. For the Orlando Magic. He is 6'10", 270 pounds. That's a big old boy. 25 years old. This season, Wendell played in 55 games. He was injured. Last season, 57 games. Season before that, 62. Season before that, 22. Season before that, 32. Are you guys noticing a trend here?
That's why I'm an automatic no.
He gets wood a lot.
This season, he shot the ball 7.7 times a game at 53%. He did shoot, where is it at? He did shoot 3.1 3-point attempts a game this season at a 37% clip, 7 rebounds, 1.5 assists, half a steal, half a block, 11 points. His advanced statistics this season: defensive rebound percentage, 23%, total rebound percentage, 16%. Those are both pretty good numbers. He is under contract next season for $11.9 million. The following season for $10.8 million, and then is a free agent after that. That would put his contract ending right before the J-Dub and Chet extensions kick in.
Well, I like this idea a lot, actually. In a perfect world, I like this idea, I should say, because the injury concerns are real. Like if he plays between 50 and 60 games every season, but another Nickism, in a vacuum. Is that Nick? It says that?
Yeah,
it is.
Okay.
Nick is in a vacuum. Taylor is as a whole. What's mine again? Nail on the head.
Nail on the head.
Yeah.
I thought Nick would have been out of a vacuum after his teenage years.
Yeah, well, you know Nick.
Silva, I think that's a good take.
I think they went backwards in Italy.
Well, you never know over in the Eastern Hemisphere. But I think like Jake mentioned at the beginning, the man hasn't played above 55 games once. And he's been in the league for what, 6 years now? With something like that?
More than that. 8.
But yeah, or something like that. I just know he's between Chicago and Orlando. And I think maybe his injury history could play a role as far as like him understanding a role on a team, and again, like throwing that out there, and that makes sense to me. I think I could see a world where that happens, but the price tag.
He kind of does everything that you would want. Like if you could go back in time and get like a young, like an Al Horford type, like Wendell, I've always like kind of looked at as the same archetype of player, obviously not nearly as good. Yeah, we've talked about that a lot here. He's awesome. He is their starting center. I know there was like is Goga Batazde actually better than Wendell Carter Jr.? Maybe we should sell high. I don't know. It feels like there's an opportunity there. Like he might be gettable also. Would you start him? I feel like I would be more comfortable starting him as opposed to like the Claxton thing.
Agreed there.
But I don't know.
If I had to choose one of those two guys to start, it's Wendell, and it's not a question. I like the Wendell fit personally. I think Wendell is the less playmaking J-Will that does everything else a little bit better and has a little more experience. The size, they're about the same size, 6'10", 270. J-Will is the better passer. I don't think that's a question. But besides that, they do everything else similarly. I think Wendell is the better defender. Neither of them are rim protectors. They're not going to get up and block shots, but they're very big bodies that you can throw at guys like a Jokic or an Embiid or whoever. I kind of like the Wendell fit.
Hey, according to Clean last season, the 85th percentile of block shots in terms of percentages, as well as he has pretty high percentages in regards to rebounding as well, which I find pretty interesting. Obviously, it's a huge need for the Thunder team, and he can still space the floor, like you guys mentioned. Hypothetically, it's not always super consistent, but the fit's there. That's a really interesting one. I think the key with Wendell Carter Jr. is, the Magic are a team who are on a similar trajectory as the Thunder. So who are you willing to give up, and who are they willing to take?
Great question. So let's discuss that for a second. The Magic are on the upward trajectory. I think they're going to be better next year, especially with how bad the East is. What is the Magic's biggest need, or two biggest needs? If you had to identify the Magic this entire season, to me, there are two things that stick out like a sore thumb.
Let me guess. Playmaking and shooting.
Bing bong. You are correct.
Josh does one of those things.
You have to trade for him, right? You have to trade for him because he is under contract. I think we're talking a package that is centered around Is it Josh? I don't know. But I think Wiggins and Joe are in that conversation. I think Wiggins and Joe are 100% in that conversation from the Orlando side.
Yeah.
And
Agreed.
you don't do that. You don't do that.
That's where I fall.
Both of them or just one of them?
Both of them.
Call me if it was just one of the two. Would that change your mind at all?
You take out Isaiah Joe, then you've got my blessing.
So if it's Wiggins and pick 12 and something else, a couple of seconds.
I'd be saying, I swear to God, Oklahoma City's culture better not just heal players' image, and they also better heal their bodies, because this man hasn't played a full season in his entire career. And so I'd be saying that's a gamble in itself. But I think the upside he could provide, especially even off the bench or with Chet, would be good. But I don't know if I want to take that risk.
That's fair. All right. Pulse of the pod. I'm going in reverse order this time. Call me our Wendell Carter Jr. Where's the pulse at?
No pulse. Nope.
Justin.
That's my favorite kind of
That will be a sounder.
That's my favorite.
Taylor, where's your pulse at?
I'm very intrigued, but worried about what that trade will look like.
That doesn't tell us what your pulse is. Are you in? Are you out?
I mean,
is your pulse at 0? You're dead?
Do I have to?
Are you at 180 beats per minute? You just took pre-workout and some methamphetamines?
Oh, we're talking literal pulse.
Where's your pulse at?
Pulse is pretty steady on this one. I could talk myself into it.
I have a slight arrhythmia.
Okay. JD?
My pulse is rapid, and I'm beginning to sweat.
Is that a good thing?
Yes.
I think I'm kind of around JD. I like the Wendell Carter Jr. fit. Name number 3. One that's been kicked around a bit, especially due to the way their season ended and the hit piece dropped by The Athletic as soon as their season ended. I'm talking the big Afro man, the Lego enthusiast, the guy who every time he hits a free throw, it plays the Legend of Zelda theme, Jarrett Allen.
That's reason alone to get him.
Yes, of the Cleveland Cavaliers, 6'11", 243. Jarrett Allen is a 9-year veteran. Where the hell does time go?
I know, that's crazy.
This past season, Allen played 77 games, 32 minutes per game, 10.5 shots. He shot 63%, does not shoot the 3 at all. Was a 74% free throw shooter on 4 attempts a game. That's pretty nice. 10.5 rebounds, 2.5 assists, 1 block, and nearly a steal a game. He was 10th in Defensive Player of the Year voting. 3 seasons ago, he was an NBA All-Star. A few more statistics for you. His advanced numbers. He is a 26% defensive rebounding percentage player, and total rebound percent is at 19. His contract is next season, $20 million. The season after that, $20 million. Then the contract is up. Pros and cons of Jarrett Allen. We've already touched on it. I'm going to kick us off with the pros. He's a cool dude. Not going to hurt the vibes.
In segment.
Yeah.
I will follow that up with he's also a good rebounder. And I think that's probably the most intriguing thing about Jarrett Allen compared to everyone we've talked about thus far. What he would bring on the rebounding game feels like a significant upgrade. I think it's hard to argue against the numbers. I think you got to see a little bit of him in Cleveland alongside Evan Mobley. And that's the part that makes me because it wasn't great. The pairing didn't work super well. Evan Mobley and Chet are not the same, but they're not totally dissimilar. And I think it's tough when you've seen a guy be asked to play in a pairing somewhat like that, and it didn't necessarily work super great. To go like, yes, let's go try that. That gives me pause.
And the only pushback I give on that, Justin, is Mobley can't shoot the three.
Sure.
Doesn't shoot the three.
Yep.
And
Agreed.
Chet does.
That's a big
And
difference for sure.
I think it's interesting to talk about Jarrett Allen because a year ago we would definitely said, oh yeah, 100%. Jarrett Allen needs to be on this team. We've been fawning over Jarrett Allen, or a lot of us have been fawning over Jarrett Allen for quite a few years now because the guy's good. Ever since he's been in the league, when he was in Brooklyn, he's a consistent double-double. Guy plays defense really well without fouling, has a consistent paint presence, doesn't shoot the ball. Again, that's an issue. It's going to clog the lane. Nothing wrong with variability of play, but is that worth $20 million in cap? And then to Justin's point, he is a decent rebounder, a good rebounder, and that's something that OKC lacks. But he has such a defensive IQ that starts fast breaks, that gets the other four guys going. And with that said, he's also a consistent free throw shooter in 70s and above. And so getting those offensive rebounds, getting those defensive rebounds, he's not afraid of getting into the thick of it, which that's going to land you about maybe 2 more shots a game, possibly. And those are 2 more shots that could possibly win you a game because he knocks them down consistently. And so I think that's something that he offers you is the free throw game in comparison to other guys we've talked about. But again, we're talking about a guy that, yes, is great on defense, which is something that OKC was already good at in the first place. But he's a guy that is not a floor spacer. And that's, again, is it worth the money? Is a guy like that worth the money? But at the same time, playoffs, you're going to need guys like that.
Love what you brought up about him creating transition opportunities, Kamiar, because that is something that we saw slow down the playoffs for the Thunder, and it's something that's been their strength this whole iteration of this current Thunder team. I find that really interesting. This is probably the big on our list that gets me the most excited, I think, in regards to what he brings. You all have touched on the rebounding, the lob threat, the defensive versatility. That's going to be an insane, hellacious defense for opposing teams to have to go against, especially when they're driving into the paint. And he also presents some versatility as well, being able to guard a little bit in space, and also allows Chet to be able to roam, like I mentioned earlier. I think the key is that you kind of have to adjust your play style, which is something I'm not so sure the Thunder are super interested in. But for a player like that, maybe you are. I think what that comes down to is how open are you to having Chet on the perimeter and being more of a perimeter shooter. J-Dub's going to have to get that 3-point shot going. Shea's going to have to be a better 3-point shooter. If those guys can improve from the perimeter, I think a player like Jarrett Allen fits perfectly. But that's going to be key offensively, and really comes down to what role that this Thunder organization views Chet offensively long-term.
I was actually going to ask about that. I want to poll you guys. Do you think this is the final iteration of OKC's offense? Because I feel like Chet is going to eventually have a lot more ball handling duties. I feel like this play style that they're doing right now is super convenient for the time being, but I don't know if this is the current iteration that they are running 2 years from now if the core stays together.
I agree with that completely.
I agree.
I could see those ball handling duties and the shot distribution evening out more. And the great thing is, if you can keep it together, as Shea gets to his year 29, 30, 31 seasons, Chet and J-Dub are 25,
prime
26. The way it's set up is to be very, very sustainable. Are we done talking Jarrett Allen?
Yeah.
I didn't say anything about him. Just quickly, like if there was a center that would make me question, like, should they change how they play a little? Like Jarrett Allen is a candidate of doing that because he's so good. He's like a Rudy Gobert archetype, except I don't hate him. So yeah, he's cool. He's a cool guy. Maybe you just look J-Dub and SGA and shoot better. Play Chet at the 4, play Jarrett Allen at the 5. It's something they could consider at some point. But
all right, I'm changing up our scale. I want to know your pulse on Jarrett Allen, but this time, how much you like or dislike it. I'm just winging stuff at this point on the podcast, boys. This time, and because Kamiar is on, that's what's inspired this one tonight. Gatorade flavor. Kamiar, you can kick us off. If you had to rank Jarrett Allen as how you feel the fit would be. Wait, sorry. I'm sorry. Before we do that, we do got to talk. we do got to talk. It's $20 million for 2 seasons. They got to trade. What does the trade package look like? To me, this is the Giddey and a pick move.
That's got to be Giddey and picks.
Yeah.
And then they do something with Giddey because I don't think they need him.
If they move on from Darius Garland, I could see them
yeah.
them sticking around. This is all contingent on Donovan Mitchell signing the extension there as well. Okay, Kamiar, your Gatorade flavor feeling on this one.
What's the rubric here? Are we establishing our own?
Preference.
Okay,
yeah, for each person.
I'm about to out myself as a Gatorade person. Some of you guys know this. Silva already knows.
Bring it home.
We already know. Us tan folks kind of unite around this. Cucumber lime Gatorade.
I knew it.
Cucumber lime Gatorade. I am a fan. I will drink it to my death. It's always on the bottom row of 7-Eleven because they don't want you to buy it because it's so good. I want Jarrett Allen. I would like Jarrett Allen. I'm on board with him. He's got so much experience. He could bring a lot of wealth to the team. He's carrying a hefty payload. Something that would be more useful than, quite frankly, we saw Josh Giddey in the playoffs. And it's only for 2 years. And if it doesn't work out, okay, cool, whatever, you're out. But yeah, I'm on board.
Justin,
I'm gonna put him at a firm middle ground orange Gatorade. Orange is not the best flavor. It is not the worst flavor. It is a just fine flavor.
It's a
Am I
classic.
willing to pay exorbitantly for an orange Gatorade? No, I am not.
Okay, Taylor.
Hopefully Gatorade is never interested in sponsoring the podcast because I've kind of transitioned away from Gatorade to other
Here we
sports
go.
drink brands. That being said, growing up,
It's the
one of my
Armour one.
go-tos,
Yep.
Armour, and then there's a couple others that are kind of unique as well that I've gotten into. That being said, like growing up, I have memories of going into like Quick Trip back in Oklahoma. Quick Trip's a staple. Getting my taquito or my buffalo roller, buffalo chicken roller, whatever it was, and then going and getting a cool blue Gatorade. That was my go-to. Doesn't mean it was my like absolute favorite or was the best, but I'm pretty excited about it. So I'm going cool blue.
That I like Taylor with the Tulsa elitist status of having a Quick Trip. We just got one in OKC and everybody went there like nuts.
I have frequented it, pretty frequently.
Sad the come and go is going in Owasso though.
JD.
R.I.P.
So my favorite is also the cucumber lime. I'm not like that head over heels for the Jarrett Allen thing, so I'm going one step below, which to me is the lemon lime Gatorade, the yellow.
Okay.
It's always there for me when I need it most. Usually when I'm sick, that's my go-to. I get that one and I just ride it out. I'm going with the lemon lime.
I like it. I am going with orange Gatorade as well.
Hey-o.
That is not a good thing.
Oh.
When I was a child, my mom would make me drink orange Gatorade. So orange Gatorade now, you know how there's like certain tastes or smells or things that really just bring back a very vivid memory? Orange Gatorade brings back the memory of my house and more growing up when I was throwing up.
When you were sick. Yep.
So that's why you talked up Jarrett Allen at the very beginning, because you were going to associate him with throw up at the very end.
I do like Jarrett Allen as a player a lot. It reminds me of an older style of Oklahoma City Thunder basketball that doesn't really fit. Okay, the last one on our list before we give our wild cards would be, I got to pull up his stats here for you guys real quick, a guy that has been quote unquote rumored to the Oklahoma City Thunder. Opposing GMs think it might happen. A man of interesting background. I recently found out he is technically a man of color. Did not know that. Isaiah Hartenstein of the New York Knicks. He is 7 foot 250. This season, he's how many seasons has he been in the league? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Several.
Hey, did you not know that?
He's played for several different teams too, like 3, 4.
No, I meant that he's a man of color.
That came up during the playoffs. He was on a
pod with Jalen Brunson, and they were talking about how the day they found out he was a black man.
Okay. Let's move.
No, it's like legit though. But anyway,
I know.
8 seasons. This season he played 75 games, started 50 of them, 25 minutes a game. 5 shots, 65%. Does not shoot the 3. He did shoot 33% on 0.0 attempts a game. So it means like he made a heave. Free throws, he shot 70% this year on 2 free throws a game. 8 rebounds, 2.5 assists, 1 steal, 1 block, 8 points. When you look at his advanced numbers, the defensive rebounding percent, 22.7. The total rebound percent, 18.5. That's a high number. You also have to consider who he played with on that team, which was a lot of big-time rebounders like Julius Randle, Josh Hart. Who's the other big they have? Why am I going blank?
Mitchell Robinson.
Mitchell Robinson. Isaiah Hartenstein will be a free agent this summer. Word is that he will command around $20+ million per year in free agency.
I think that's a lot for this Thunder team.
My man's been hanging out with Mitch McGarry too much.
Yeah, I mean,
Michael.
Yeah, this might be a quick
Like
segment
snakes.
from me on old Hartenstein. How do you like saying his last name, Hartenstein? That's fun.
What's the name of the
Frankenstein.
guy from Overwatch? Because that's what it reminds me of.
Oh,
Someone.
remember.
I bet you Smoot in our chat has played Overwatch and knows.
Remember when
They're
Chris?
calling out
Remember when
Smoot?
Chris Paul nutmegged him?
Oh,
Back in
yeah.
the
The
OKC
OKC
days.
jerseys.
Yeah.
Yep.
Nutmegged him and then
With
did
the
wave
Rockets.
off.
Yeah, he was like, no, don't. Yeah, that was fantastic. That was fantastic.
If someone's got the Overwatch character, Junkenstein. No,
Junkenstein?
the big German dude, Smoot. Come on, brother.
Yeah, it's Stein. But like as far as he goes, I mean, the issue for me is the amount of dollars wanted, right? I mean, there's no way, even with the new cap, I would get close to giving that guy $20 million with him being a reliable 8-6 guy his entire career. And yet I get he's 26 years old. He's a bench guy for OKC. You don't pay that. You're not doing that. Like maybe you get a backup center big like that for 12 to 16 possibly, but 20 for Hartenstein, that's a no for me, dog. He can block the ball. He's not really much of a shooter. No.
Chef Main in the chat got it. It's Reinhardt. I don't know why Reinhardt and Hartenstein.
I was going to say.
The hard part at the end, maybe, and it's very German.
Yeah. I don't know. It's
To
similar.
me, Hartenstein would be an exclusive bench guy for this team, and I'm not dropping that big of a bag on a bench guy who could maybe play with Chet. You can make it work, but I'm not paying that much for a bench guy who is a toughness, defense, rebounding guy. Just doesn't make sense for me.
Agree completely.
Also, I liked him a lot more when he was on like his current contract, just a backup big, trying really hard for the Knicks. Now he's going to be, making a shitload of money.
Anybody else have any Hartenstein feelings?
It'd be fun in the screen and roll, but like you said, is that what this team needs? I don't know.
All right. Next scale on your Hartenstein feelings is Oklahoma fast food. JD.
Like strictly like from Oklahoma?
Just stuff that's around here. So like Brahms can be in the mix.
Okay, well, he's damn sure not Brahms. He's probably like a current iteration of McDonald's where it's just
that's what I had.
It was good. Things were much better 5 years ago when you could go and spend $4 and get plenty of food. And now it's like for that exact same amount of food, you're going to pay double. And that's
I like the inflation reference. That's very well done. I was going to say McDonald's simply because you know what you're getting and you're happy with it when you're going to get it and you're expecting it.
I'm not happy with it.
At the same time, you're not going there frequently.
He reminds me of Chipotle. Again, liked him a little bit before with the older price tags, but of course, then you have your issues with E. coli, and then recently with actually having no portions. And now that, especially with that cost, they're still charging extra for guacamole. What are you doing? Qdoba doesn't even do that. You're charging extra for guacamole, and all I'm getting is a little bit of chicken over here. Like, come on, man, what are we doing? Like 8-6, you want 20 mil? There's no way. It's a Chipotle.
Justin?
I'm trying really hard to think of a Oklahoma specific reference. I think I'm gonna go with Sonic.
Sonic was mine too.
And here's the thing about Sonic. They do a few things well, but are they the place you go to for everything? No, they're not.
Dime a dozen.
They can fit a role. They can scratch that specific itch on a certain occasion.
Make you want to get sick sometimes?
Specific bone to pick with Sonic. They recently switched to pre-grilled toast. Horrible. Like the burger that came on the Texas toast used to be fantastic. This is not related to Hartenstein. But they now use like a pre-toasted toast that they just heat up, and it's like kind of chewy. Not great.
That's the cheapest shit I've ever heard.
Yeah,
terrible.
Sonic is what you get when you're out in the middle of nowhere and there's nothing else around and you're just kind of desperate.
That's fair.
You got Taco Mayo, Pizza Hut, and Sonic.
And you don't want to go to like a mom and pop shop, right?
But
I went there for breakfast today, to be clear.
We got a cheddar pepper. We got a cheddar pepper shout out. The breakfast burrito is a go-to, especially if you ask them to put tater tots inside.
Oh yeah,
game changer.
What's taters, precious?
All right,
potatoes.
Justin, I'm glad you went on that tangent because I shit you not. I have in my notes for this episode. I have a short segment on Pop-Tarts, but we're not going to do that because we're already at an hour and 7 minutes. So I'm glad you took us down the food.
Took us down a Sonic rabbit hole.
All right, we are at an hour and 7 minutes. Folks are getting a long pod tonight. You're welcome.
Long pod.
Because we each are going to throw out a wild card. Our wild cards we just got to talk about kind of quickly. Okay. A name that hasn't been mentioned yet of a big. You can list them off because you love them. You can list them off because you hate them, but it has to be a realistic option. Okay, no Anthony Davis on the list. Who wants to kick us off?
Kelly Olynyk.
Dang it.
Nice.
Yep.
And to be fair, I hate it.
Okay. I think the fit makes sense off the bench.
The fit makes sense. I just have never liked the guy, and that's the extent of the analysis.
Is it the goatee or
yeah? First time he misses a three. Hey, hippie boy. from the with that long
Kelly
hair
Olynyk
from the
looks
sidelines.
like he's gonna go skateboard and listen to Pearl Jam.
Lords of
Yes.
Dogtown vibes
100%.
over
straight
there.
edge Birdman.
Yeah. You said straight edge Birdman. Oh my. Yeah.
That
There's
is
been
the best thing I've ever heard.
There's
He's
been a Birdman
making
in OKC.
12.8 next year, 13.4 the next year. Kelly Olynyk in the pit throwing up the X's before he's throwing down to the breakdown. Straight edge Birdman.
What's the Disney movie, the skating Disney movie?
Brink.
Should've started that.
Brink.
Brink.
Heck yeah.
Totally
man.
a Brink character.
what is
All
that?
right.
Soul skaters. Pup
We've
and
got
suds.
Kelly Olynyk off the list. Who's next?
Can I
Yusuf
just get it out of the
Nurkic.
way?
Yusuf
it.
Nurkic.
Yes. Go for it.
Yeah, you
Yusuf
probably
Nurkic.
Yeah.
I hate him.
Me too.
Because of the
My
amount
brother
of
needs help.
scraps, I've seen him been in, but at the same time, he's willing to get violent. I mentioned earlier that Oklahoma City would need a enforcer presence, especially in the playoffs. Guys like that are underrated. Draymond, we hate him so much, but if we were Golden State fans and had a Golden State podcast, we love Draymond because he does the things not everybody likes. Perk
Like
did the same
kick
stuff.
people in the testicles?
And imagine being a Miami Heat fan or Grizz fan. I can't remember when he sat on Mike Miller, specifically which playoff series that was. But all the stuff he did, holding on to Blake Griffin's arm in playoff series, doing like legitimate dirty work, and being a guy that's willing to be that guy and be the essential butthole of the entire team. So, yeah, that's another clip. Clip it out there online.
The essential butthole.
But he's also a double guy. Gets to the rim, stays there, gets rebounds, but is an issue on defense. But well, he's a fun guy.
You want a guy who rebounds? Nurk is that guy.
We
That
saw
he
that
is.
firsthand. this
Got a
season.
shitload this year.
Yippers.
JD, you want to get your guy off the list?
Yep, he's got the eyes like a wild coyote. He is full of violence. He can, shoot threes. He could start. You know what I mean? It's Bobby Portis.
You know what I mean?
You know what I mean?
It's Bobby
P.
Bobby P.
Old SG in our chat's been just foaming at the mouth for Bobby Portis. There
I
you
feel
go.
like Silva should have a cigarette behind his ear when he said that phrase just now, like Jake did the other day.
We need the
you know
Silva
what I mean?
image. The Silva image that we tweeted out with his eyes like
Yeah.
trying to imitate
Yeah.
Bobby
P.
Portis eyes.
Silva, can you find that and pull it up on the stream real quick for
It's
I
everybody?
thought you were going to ask him
let's
to
see.
recreate it.
I have it.
Oh, can you just recreate it real quick?
Yeah, do it.
Did you guys hear the guy in Indiana who kept oh God, Justin, that was good.
Do you like that?
The guy in Indiana who was next to the camera and kept yelling, Bobby, your eyes are slightly too big for your head. Just over and over. It's really funny.
Love it.
Taylor, you got one?
I was going to go Kelly Olynyk, so I will go with my pipe dream here, which goes against the rules. I'm the rule breaker of this podcast. How fun would Bam Adebayo be on this team? It'd be so fun.
Can't
It'd be
space the
so
floor.
fun. But I'm with Justin on Kelly Olynyk. I know he can't space the floor, but he does everything else at such a high level.
He's
And
awesome.
if Chet, we talked about Chet, J-Dub, and really Shea, like other players improving from the 3-point line, especially Dub and Chet, that'd be a dream fit, I think. So that's my pipe dream, but I agree with Justin. Kelly Olynyk was my more realistic one. Although I will add the disclaimer, I think him being traded to Toronto makes that a little more difficult. I think they have plans of keeping him long term, apparently. So
I'll give you mine. You ready? He'll get your rebounds. He's an elite screen setter.
Danny Avdia is not a big, Justin or Jacob.
I'm not talking
Wow.
to Danny Avdia.
Sorry,
Let me get there, you son of a gun.
The Jays.
He will rebound for you. He will set screens. He is the ultimate team player.
Beef.
Kamiar wants a scrapper. This guy isn't necessarily, he's not going to fight, but he can take a beating. He can be that guy for you. He will be in the beef. He is arguably the strongest man in the NBA. He needs rescuing from the hellhole that is the Houston Rockets.
Beef.
You are bringing home the long lost son, Steven Adams.
The Oklahoma beef spokesperson, Steven Adams.
Dude, 100%. Like, I've been thinking about that for the longest time. Like, why not bring him back? He would like it here. He already does.
You want to talk about a guy that would fit the culture?
Oh,
Yes.
Who wouldn't rock the boat?
and lead the culture.
Who would
Body
just
broken.
fit in seamlessly? Who would have everybody's back? He's not going to go punch somebody. But if Tony Bradley gets in it, he's just going to escort him out like a 5-year-old child.
It's incredible. Seriously.
He would have picked up Derek Jones Jr., but just like by the top of the head and moved him out of the way in the Mavs series.
I'm so glad you said that, because that's been in the back of my mind like the last 3 weeks. I'm like, if OKC's bringing in a center, Steven Adams, he got tossed aside. Of course, injuries, issues, stuff like that. But I mean,
Now you want to talk about spacing problems?
he's available, and I bet Houston would be willing to get him out. You know, spacing problems, but again, he's
I can
at
handle
that
spacing
age.
problems if it's Steven Adams.
He
just for the
reminds
vibes
me-
alone.
Exactly.
Yeah, he reminds me of Jokic in the face that basketball is just his job, and I think he would accept that role, that Nick Collison role of 16 to 20 something minutes a night for backdoor passes in the lane, making the tough man moves, all that stuff. I'd be on board with that 100%.
I'm just imagining a post-game interview of Chet and Steve-O with their arms around each other, and Steve-O like slaps Chet in the chest, and Chet just like doubles over in pain because Steve-O's like so much bigger than he is.
Can you imagine Steve-O barking? We need that.
Oh my god,
deserve it.
buddy.
Just take him out to
That's
dinner and
good.
see, like, comparatively see how much they eat.
Chet and
Smashing
Steve-O.
I want to see that.
It might be equal, weirdly enough.
Kind of want this to happen now.
I know.
You talked me into
the
it.
vibes would be through the roof.
I was thinking,
I need to
man,
look up his contract real quick.
So I think
I mean,
that's
it's
why
still
you
pretty
do that.
hefty. It's still pretty hefty.
While you do that, I'm seeing so many names thrown out here. And again, like
JaVale
we
McGee.
still have 2 more episodes in this series when we do wings and guards. But I think the conclusion we've come to is that the perfect fit for the starting 5, the Josh Giddey fit, whatever you want to call it, it's not probably going to be from a big. At the same time, the Thunder can still address that by bringing somebody in off the bench. And Steven Adams would be perfect and a ton of fun if he can stay healthy.
12.6 next year, and then it's off.
Beautiful.
I like that a lot.
Beautiful.
I like that very much. And OKC fans would be actually. I think
people
they
would lose their
hyped for that.
minds.
No,
dude.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
All the shirts. I wore my Steven Adams is my homeboy shirt just the other day, and the mural can come back.
I'm into it. I kind of just pulled the Steve-O name out of my ass live here on the show, and I've completely talked myself into it.
I'm glad you pulled it out of your ass live.
It's not the only thing I can pull out of my ass. Let's go to a break, and on the other side, we will have our Dave's Hot Take of the Week and make some predictions. We will be right back. And we are back. JD, will you tell us about Dave's Hot Chicken, please?
In just a moment. I did not realize I'd be doing that. Give me 1 second. The East Hollywood pop-up sensation turned fast casual superstar Dave's Hot Chicken is bringing the heat to Oklahoma in Bricktown, Edmond, and now open in Chisholm Creek. Their mouth-watering sliders and tenders are offered at 7 spice levels ranging from no spice to Reaper. Each piece of hand-breaded chicken is spiced to order using a blend crafted specifically for its heat level or no spice at all, along with sides of house-made kale slaw, creamy mac and cheese, and crispy seasoned fries. Visit Dave's Hot Chicken at any of their 3 metro locations.
I love Dave's Hot Chicken. It's been too long since I've been there.
It's very good.
It is
very
good.
Agreed.
All right. Hot takes tonight. The whole pod has been about the Thunder possibly acquiring a big man.
Yippers.
So let's make the hot take pretty simple. The statement, we're not each going to choose a hot take. I'm giving you a hot take, and you each are going to choose where to rank it.
Oh, okay.
The Thunder acquire a big this offseason who will play a traditional big, who will play a significant role on this team next season. Significant meaning they're top 7 in minutes played per game. Maybe it's one of the guys we just listed.
Extra hot.
Okay.
Extra hot.
Extra hot.
I'm between hot and
Taylor
extra
to say
hot.
something.
Taylor's
He's
just
muted.
nodding on mute.
I was typing, and I hope you guys would accept my nod as a, yeah, I agree.
Extra hot it is.
Next.
You made it easy for me because my hot take was going to be that the Thunder do not sign a center this offseason.
Or trade for one.
I think that while you never know, and the right scenario could present itself, and that magical center unicorn could become available and want the pieces that the Thunder have to offer, I feel like Presti was starting to allude to the address the unsaid criticisms, or maybe they have been said on Twitter, around the Thunder needing a big man. In his press conference, in a very Presti way, it felt like he was kind of addressing some of those of like, it's not that easy. That's not exactly like how it always works. We're going to take the long view of things. We're going to look at how we want to build this team. And I think for all the reasons we've talked about with all these guys, I think there's some drawbacks to adding a big to this team, especially one that you're going to have to pony up for.
Agree. I'm going to go extra hot with you guys as well. I don't think it happens, but Presti's done wild stuff before. You know what one that we didn't mention that could make a ton of sense is Brook Lopez. The guy that does everything that you need them to do, spaces, protects the rim, plays defense, rebounds, big body, shorter contract, older.
It makes sense for OKC, but like, does that make sense for Brooklyn? Or sorry, for he did play for Brooklyn. Does it make sense for the Bucks to trade him? And what are you giving up in return?
I worry about the transition game with Brook Lopez.
Yeah, he's old.
Yeah.
His brother would probably hang out here, which would be cool. Mm-hmm. You can find brother at the Disney store out at the outlet mall pretty frequently, I bet.
Hopefully not on the court, though. But
yeah, no.
His brother.
I know. So I'm saying, hopefully,
okay.
we
All right. That's all for hot takes. We have to make some predictions. Our last predictions of this NBA season. JD, can you pull up Thunder Chick's beautiful graphic for us?
Yes. In a moment.
We are down to just predicting the finals now. A quick reminder, the winner of this prediction game gets Summer League merch paid for by the rest of us. In the lead right now, can you change that because I can't see who's in the lead?
Yeah. Sorry.
That was perfectly timed.
Thank you. In the lead right now is Justin Peabody at 21 points.
You're dang right.
As Thunder Chick has told me, nobody can catch Justin unless we change the rules. So the new rules are... I'm teasing. Justin has 21. I have 15. Taylor has 13. JD has 12. Nick is cursing in Italian as he only has 11 points. Last place. He is probably going to listen to this podcast and be upset.
This
gotta
feels
predict
like
the finals.
vindication for getting last in the regular season.
I love it. We got to predict the finals. Boston, Dallas tips off Thursday night in Boston. JD, your thoughts on the series? We need a winner, games, and one big thought.
I've got the Celtics in 7. And that should tell you kind of that leads in my big thought. And then I don't have a ton of confidence. Like the Celtics on paper are a much better constructed roster, but we don't know the status of Kristaps necessarily. They've played one like weaker team after another, haven't really struggled in the postseason. I'm realizing this is way more than one thought, but I don't have a ton of the Celtics haven't had to go up a notch, go up a gear to close out a series. And the Mavs have done that like the entire playoffs outside of the Clippers series.
All right, Taylor.
it feels like a month since we've had NBA basketball. It's kind of crazy. I also have the Celtics in 7, Silva. I just kind of think they have a lot of defenders, Luka and Kyrie. It's going to come down to those role players like we saw in the Thunder series, them stepping up. And I'm not sure, like we saw this previous series, it was more so Kyrie and Luka who just took control. The role players kind of came back to the mean. For those reasons, I'm going Celtics in 7.
Kamiar.
So I'm going to go against the grain here. Mavs in 6. They are riding such a massive wave of momentum. And not only that, this game is more decided on Luka than anything else. And I think the man has not only arrived because he's been obviously that guy in the NBA for the last however many years, but he's showing it this playoffs. And Kyrie is playing that excellent Robin to the Batman role that he did with LeBron. And again, the rest of that entire lineup is just vibing right now. And to Silva's point, Celtics not necessarily tested in the East, whereas the Mavs, you saw the best of the best and you beat the heck out of almost every one of them except the Thunder, which were close games every time.
Justin.
I've gone back and forth over the last few days trying to decide what I was going to pick because I think you guys said it all well. I think it could go either way. I don't feel super confident in either direction. I think you guys did a nice job of laying out the arguments. My official prediction, I'm going to do the same as Kami. Our Mavs in 6. I think the Boston is the better team on paper. Boston is the deeper team, but the Mavs have just shredded people that they shouldn't have this entire postseason run. And I don't see any reason why that wouldn't continue against Boston. I think Luka is going to get in their heads. I think Boston maybe doesn't have the mental toughness to withstand like Luka giving them the side eye at the free throw line. Like I think it's going to be a Luka problem for Boston.
I like it.
I also think Kyrie's going to give it to Boston.
Kyrie's going to relish it
at the Garden, at TD
Revenge
Garden
series.
I think he's going to give it to him at TD Garden.
I find the matchups in this series very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Drew Holiday is going to Drew or Jaylen Brown are going to draw the Luka job. I would assume Drew. Derek White will get the Kyrie job.
Good luck.
Dallas's rim running bigs versus we assume Kristaps Porzingis is going to play. The Mavs, Derek Jones Jr. and PJ Washington are going to get the 2 Boston wings. Al Horford against Derek Lively off the bench is a very interesting matchup of age and wisdom versus youth and athleticism. It's going to be an interesting series. I think I'm going Dallas. And I don't want to.
Yeah.
But I think I'm taking Dallas. I'll do Dallas in 7.
It's a nice break from what we've seen previously. I mean, you're getting 2 teams you did not think were going to be in the finals right here, and you get to see the Celtics.
At least
yeah,
one.
The Celtics. Yeah, that's fair. In retrospect, you thought the Bucks would actually have been better. But Mavs, man, especially since the trade deadline, just been killing it. And so I'm really excited. Like you guys said, the matchups, it could go either way.
Fun.
They could go either way.
This is one of the better finals matchups recently, I think. Like we all just picked. We're basically split, and
yeah.
I don't think
it's a finals. I hope we are. You know,
conflicted.
Yeah,
like, I think all of us are conflicted at some point.
Yeah,
this isn't the mid 20 teens Golden State Warriors we're talking about here.
I wouldn't be shocked
Exactly.
at all if the Mavs won. And I picked the Celtics.
I want to be shocked at all if the Celtics won.
That's why we went in 7.
Yep.
6 and 7. Yep.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting for sure. All right, JD, let's get out of here. Our Father in heaven.
What was that?
You missed the JD eulogy, didn't you?
I did.
It was great.
The organ music.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you guys for tuning in to the show tonight. We really appreciate you. Longer one, but hopefully it was good. To close us out, we are all in agreement.
Always is.
We don't think they're going to get a big this summer, yeah? At least a big of substance.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Well, David says we missed the super chat. Can someone get David's super chat real quick? The man gave us money.
He did.
Goose and Josh
very early
in this
on.
year's draft, where do they go?
Oh man, that's tough.
Top 6.
Yeah.
I think Josh goes top 6. Oos goes lottery.
Isn't that where they both already
I
went?
think it is. I think it's
It is. It is.
Way to go
Yes.
out on a limb, Taylor.
Sorry, David. We got so sidetracked. We
That was an hour and a half ago that we got that.
Yeah,
super
David,
chat.
you gotta hit us up earlier than the end of the show, brother. Hey, if you agree you don't think the Thunder are drafting or getting a big this summer, well, come back Wednesday, because Wednesday is Wings Day, folks. Wednesday is Wings Day. I like the alliteration there. We'll be back Wednesday talking wings. 5 possible 3s/4s that the Thunder could bring in this summer. You know we're going to talk about them. You know who I mean. We'll get there Wednesday. Please join us. You guys you said Kyle Kuzma? 100%. You guys have a great beginning of your week. We will see you Wednesday. No basketball. So just, I don't know what you're going to do, but
Just vibes.
just vibes. Enjoy yourself. Shout out to the guy. Shout out to Kamiar for joining the show tonight. We appreciate you as always. We will see you guys in a few days. Until then, and as always, Thunder up.